Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hope for the Agora podcast. We're super excited that you are here and you've decided to join us. You know, we're really excited to see how our listenership has really grown, especially this past year. Hope for the Agora is streaming more and more with more listeners all the time, all over the world. Million Podcasts has rated us number 6 of 80 podcasts, Christian podcasts that focus on the issues around mental health and mental wellness. So that's pretty exciting. We just keep moving up, and the hard work is paying off. Word is getting out there that we are all about supporting Christian community and especially the churches on how to understand and support people who are on their mental wellness journey. So, I also want to mention, if you are interested in being a financial supporter, we would be happy. That would be great. So we can continue to bring wonderful guests on to the program and from professionals, hear from professionals like we are today, as well as stories for people who are on the journey themselves to wellness. I guess we're all kind of on the journey to wellness at some level. We're all on the spectrum there to some degree. We have this continuum we're all on. Some days we're great. Some days we need a little help, and that's important. But if you would like to financially support us, you can go to agoranetworkministries.com because we're part of Agora Network Ministries. Go to agoranetworkministries.com and you can donate there. Mention Hope for the Agora in your memo, and that you're enjoying this program. We'd love to hear from you about that. If you like what you hear, get the word out. You can do that through our social medias. Facebook, follow us on Facebook, like us on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us. We're getting our YouTube channel is up and running. You can like and share and subscribe, and you can help us get the word out to people about Hope for the Agora and Agora Network Ministries. So, folks, thanks for being here today. I'm really thankful for our guest today, Glenn Taylor. He's written a number of books, but one of them came to me recently, and it deals with understanding and navigating dementia. And it's not a super thick book, but it is handy, I'm telling you. I know a number of people just within my own circles who want to know more about it, as they have people in their own lives who are struggling or maybe seeing early stages of dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever the early signs. And so this is a really, really helpful tool. Glenn is has a multifaceted background. He's in pastoral counseling, psychology, medical experience. So I'm looking forward to this time together. It's going to be great. So welcome, Glenn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you on board. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you would notice, I've been around for quite a while, and I started out in the pastorate in the 1950s, and then I went on to study in the field of psychology and more in theology as well. And for over 60 years, I've spent most of my time providing counseling for Christians in general, but particularly for pastors and missionaries. And that's taken us to many countries in the world to do that. And more recently, in the last 10 years, I've given myself mainly to writing books reflecting on some of the issues that we've encountered in 60 years of providing counseling services.
Wow, that's great. That's a lot of wisdom packed in to a number of years, and we certainly are glad that you can join us today and share some of that wisdom with us. That'll be awesome. So, family, where are you living these days?
We live in Hanover, Ontario. My wife and I. We have 2 children. They're growing in their early 60s, and we have many grandchildren. And uh, yeah, we see them quite frequently, and that's important to us at this stage of life.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Wow. Okay. Well, great to have you with us. I'm just going to go straight to it because this little book here, oh, you can tell I got this other background. Got to get a green screen. That's the next time. The little book that we have here called Navigating Dementia, like I said, it is a gem. I think it's a gem. And my wife, she is a retired nurse who's seen it all, been there. She's been a director of care in senior homes and in facilities. And so I was going through some of it with her, and she says, "Yeah, that's like great stuff, like right there." So you heard it from somebody in the medical field, so that's pretty good. So what did lead you to write this book, Navigating Dementia?
Well, at the moment, we're involved in a church in which we have what we call life groups.
Hmm.
And within our life group, which involves mostly older people, uh, we've discovered over the recent years that a number of our participants, their spouses have developed dementia,
Hmm.
and so that became an immediate need. And we realized that this was a broader need, and so some of the books that deal with dementia go into a great deal of detail. I wanted to prepare something that was brief, concise, written in common language that would be helpful to ordinary people that didn't necessarily have a medical background. I spent 25 years working in a medical context with medical doctors, and uh, so I'm familiar with the medical aspects of it. But for most of us, it's more important to deal with the realities of day by day issues in dealing with people, loved ones particularly, for whom we may become caregivers.
Yeah.
And it's not just the person experienced dementia that needs care, but it's also the caregivers who are providing the care for them through this experience. So navigating dementia grew out of that kind of experience.
What I appreciate about it is that it is much more in lay terms, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's for, I think anybody can pick it up and get a lot of clarity. I know I certainly did, even though as a pastor myself have engaged it to a certain degree and have learned different things about it. But I think you brought some things to the forefront that I think is really helpful because you were able to describe what's not helpful. You know
Mm-hmm.
what people tend to do, where people tend to go, that actually, like in terms of their thinking and whatnot, that isn't helpful. And one of the phrases, particularly in the early part of your book, is "that's not helpful."
Mm-hmm.
You describe something and
Mm-hmm.
you go, "That's not helpful." So when it comes to dementia, what are some of the ideas? What are some of the attitudes around it that are not helpful?
Well, part of the difficulty is that dementia is, there are many, many forms of dementia. And the most common is Alzheimer's, which is what we find that most people tend to deal with. And it's important to understand that we're talking about a very clearly medically defined issue.
Hmm.
And that means that a lay understanding is not adequate in terms of learning to deal with dementia. We need medical involvement. And often there is a hesitancy to become sufficiently involved with the medical community because the problems develop slowly. And we often assume that we should be able to deal with what our spouse is experiencing. And so as a result, we often fumble. We fumble the ball
Hmm.
instead of getting the help we need so that we understand what it is we're dealing with. We tend to try to deal with it ourselves without the professional help that we need.
Hmm. There are aspects of dementia, as you mention, like it's important to get the medical diagnosis. You say by the nature or purpose of diagnosis, the condition is expressed in negative ways. This may lead to negativity, which confuses and sometimes affects our responses to people with the condition. Some have created the term defectology.
Mhm.
What is that really?
Well, the issue is that we frequently focus on the defects
Mm,
rather than on what the person is left with. Often the earliest evidences will be a loss of memory, but that may be followed up with some speech problems. It may be exacerbated by the inability to comprehend things that used to be just common nature for us. And so unless we understand that what we're dealing with is a disease, the disease is not the person. And
right.
we have to differentiate between the disease that has certain impacts on the individual. The person remains the person we've always known. It's that their
Hmm.
functioning may deteriorate, and it will be different for each person. Uh, it's not all cut from the same cloth. Some people may experience physiological limitations. More frequently, memory is a common loss, but also the ability to comprehend, because essentially the physiology is that our brain is becoming kind of cluttered, if you will. And so the cluttering of the brain uh, makes it impossible for the person to remember, to function as well as they did. And so we have to differentiate between the disease, which is causing this effect, and the person whom we still love and for whom we have to hold in dignity and
Hmm.
respect. That's a continuing need of the person who is experiencing dementia.
Right. Yeah, you talk about respecting the person as a person, the worth of a person is in relation to God. Because I think one of the defectology things that you mentioned was a loss of God, like because they can't
Mhm.
comprehend everything. Have they even got some sort of faith anymore?
That's right. The sense of loss of faith comes partly as a result of the uh, inability to comprehend. For example, I have a personal friend who is experiencing dementia, and he goes to church. And at the end of the service, he has no idea what the preacher has been talking about.
Right.
And by the time he gets home, he can't remember any of it. And that his wife responds with some frustration
Yes.
with that, and she may they may anger is a common response
Yes.
to the inability of people to comprehend what we're trying to say to them. So
Hmm.
that leads to frustration, which may evolve into anger.
Hmm.
And so it requires a great deal of patience and to recognize that the person is not behaving in the way that they are because they intend to behave badly, but the effects that they're experiencing cause them to behave in ways that are different than the way in which they used to behave.
Right.
And that change is difficult for the people around them to accommodate.
Yes. Yes. And so, how do we help them to know their worth and value as God sees them in that journey?
Yes, well, I think what is really important is to continue to give them the dignity that they deserve as persons. If they are capable only of comprehending at a lesser level, then be willing to communicate with them at that level. In
Mm,
other words, you meet the person where they are, not where they used to be, if we could put it that way. They used to be able to read. They used to be able to carry on a very articulate conversation. Some of those abilities are now diminished.
hmm.
And that may be frustrating to a spouse or to friends.
Yeah.
But we need to acknowledge that this is not the person responding to. We're responding to the effects of the disease. If
Right.
if you compared it to other diseases, it would be the same kind of comparison. If I had pneumonia, I would like to have a fever. I would become very tired very, very quickly, and I might be experiencing a great deal of discomfort. Well, that's part of the disease. That's not me.
Right.
Differentiate between the disease and the person.
Hmm. Yeah. So I guess where is God in dementia? It's one of the things that people do ask. Where's God's role in dementia then?
Well, I think it's important to understand that uh, God doesn't respond to us in terms of the diseases we experience, other than that He provides comfort, and the Spirit of God comes alongside of us, as it indicates in Romans 8, that in the midst of our weaknesses, the Holy Spirit helps. And that word helps is a rather interesting word, because it means that God comes alongside of us and together with us takes a hold of our issues and helps us to lift them. So we have that. God doesn't abandon us because we have any kind of illness, and certainly not when we experience dementia.
Hmm. It seems to me for those who maybe are newer to being in a position, say as a caregiver, they noticing something in their spouse or their parent or whatever that is certainly signs of dementia and whatnot, and navigating that can be pretty. I mean, it is difficult in because it is so complex and multifaceted. It's different. We can't just pigeonhole people, right? And particularly around the diagnosis, or even the approach in caring. There isn't a one size fits all. I mean, there are, of course, certain ways we should always approach every single person, no matter what, in whatever state they're in, which you were just saying that. But you do a great job explaining the complexity. um, can you help us out, explain some of the bigger complexity of why it's tough to navigate?
Largely, I think it's a case of uh, we don't want to happen what is happening. And so we're reacting against that. The person is losing their ability to remember, their ability to communicate, and that's a loss.
Yeah.
And none of us experience, we don't like loss. We don't even like change.
It's
So
true.
when people around us change, it has implications for us. Now, just to go back for a minute to the other issue of where is God, I think of the psalmist in Psalm 89, where he says, Your love uh, stands forever,
Hmm.
in reference to God. And Isaiah, in one of his chapters, makes the same point that uh, God is there for us in spite of what we may be experiencing as loss. He's there with us. And of course, the important thing when uh, let me put it this way, if you look at the Acts of the Apostles, during the first half of the Acts, when the Apostle Paul went on his missionary journey, it was all about evangelism.
Hmm.
In the second missionary journey, interestingly, Paul doesn't focus on evangelism. He focuses on helping Christians to learn how to strengthen one another, how to comfort one another, how to edify one another. That was his focus. And so, if we understand the role that we have as believers in relationship to one another, our responsibility is to strengthen others, not to focus on their defects. It's to build people up, not to focus on what they have lost. It's
Hmm.
to comfort. And the word comfort is interesting in that it means to come alongside of the person with action that resolves the person's issue. So if in relating to someone with dementia, if they have lost their ability to understand complexities, then we communicate them to them with simplicity. We don't use big words. We don't
Mm-hmm.
use technical words.
Right.
Uh, our relational strength is in our capacity to stand with other people, uh, not to stand over them.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good way to look at it. Thanks for helping us understand that a little bit more. Uh, and so, what are I mean, you address a number of things in the book that can be helpful, kind of like just little key things to remember. But what are some healthy approaches, things to remember when it comes to you're now the caregiver of the person, and it comes to giving, when it comes to giving care for a person who has dementia, uh, what are some good things to do, like planning wise, perhaps, or being proactive?
Well, one of the things that I think is important for all of us to do is to, first of all, educate ourselves a little more adequately so that we understand dementia. But then going on from there, I think the uh, foundational thing is to seek to be patient, to seek to be compassionate, to focus on the person's abilities that are remaining rather than the abilities that they have lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's only and because dementia develops slowly, it's very different for each individual. And so, whereas one person may become slower in terms of the physiological responses, another person may lose their ability to express themselves. Someone else will be losing their ability to remember things. They may be able to have quoted scripture in the past. Now that becomes more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we have to do is practice communicating effectively, which means in terms that the other person is expressing themselves in. So, and then we need to care for their environment. It's terribly important that we create a safe environment, which means that we don't move the furniture around, keep the
Mm-hmm.
furniture in the same place. Don't have many of these movable rugs on the floor
Mm-hmm.
because they shift and they slip. And if a person is beginning to lose their balance a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
then that becomes a hazard. So keeping familiar things in their place becomes a very, very important issue. So we're creating a safe environment for them,
Right.
an environment that they can continue to be familiar with. And the other thing, of course, for the caregivers, and I always find this is very helpful, caregivers need to care for themselves.
Yeah.
And that means that they probably need to take a break. Some of the folk that we have in our group at the church, they have a day away, so
Mm-hmm.
that there are facilities in most communities now where persons with dementia can go and play games, do other activities supervised by professional people. But this permits the caregiver, the primary caregiver, an opportunity to have a day free
Mm-hmm.
where they can go shopping, where they can visit their children or their other relatives, where they would carry on a normal conversation. So I think the care of the caregiver becomes an absolutely crucial issue
Mm-hmm.
in the whole matter of dementia. And planning for the future, knowing that this is a developmental process, it's going to change, sometimes quickly, sometimes very slowly, but there will be change over the period of time. And we need to anticipate that change, which may mean even considering moving from a house to an apartment or to a facility where there is a different levels of care. Initially, the care may need to be limited, but as the developmental process continues, care may need to be increased. So you can plan ahead to anticipate what may happen in that regard.
Right. But being attentive to what is happening presently
That's right.
is because, like, some of the folks that I've spoken with, uh, sometimes a person struggling with dementia some key things can suddenly change almost overnight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And stuff they were doing yesterday, they can't do today.
Absolutely.
Which is hard, which is really
That's right.
difficult.
Yes.
I can't imagine. I mean, my wife went through a health crisis 3 years ago, and we weren't sure how far she was going to come out of it, and would this be normal for her from here on in. So as you said, you start looking at, well, what might the future mean here? What
Mm-hmm.
might next steps need to be? Will we have to do this? Will we have to get more OT? Will we have to get speech therapy? What will we all need? Will we have to get, um, different apparatus and devices and whatever might help?
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, the Lord kept moving along and healing her to a place where she's doing pretty good. She's got her moments, but otherwise she's doing really well,
Mm-hmm.
and thank God for that. But I know with it being a progressive disease, it you don't really see any rebound back,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a unidirectional thing normally. They're going in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
And how, with the speed of that change, will be different from person to person, and the nature of the change.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us struggle a little bit with an unknown future. We don't know
True.
what tomorrow holds, and you can anticipate the worst, or you can be grateful what you have and be hopeful that God and your friends and support group will continue to be there for you as you move into a more difficult future.
Yeah.
And I think the having making this what I would call a family affair, where you're not just a husband and wife who are now isolated, but involve the children. The children who now are probably grown and perhaps
Mm-hmm.
married and have their own families, but they need to be informed and they need to be educated,
Right.
and they need to know how they can respond to usually it's parents. And, the scripture speaks of honoring the father and mother. And there's a strong emphasis in the scripture also that families should care for each other
Yes.
as the aging process occurs. So being open to that and welcoming that rather than resisting it becomes a very important consideration.
Right. And we as a church play an important role in that too, in terms of those who are struggling with dementia, but families of people struggling with dementia, and the caregivers. Like, how do we as a church do a better job at supporting everyone involved, the
Well,
caregivers and those who are suffering with dementia?
Well, one of the things that I think is very important to do is to have welcoming people at the church who understand uh, who within the community is experiencing dementia, and they can help them out of their car. They can even, in our church, we have a system of people who will park your car. So the
Mm-hmm.
person will drive up to the front of the church. Then a person who is prepared ahead of time, we even have vests for them to wear. They will take the car and take it to a parking lot. So the person doesn't have to walk from the parking lot to the church. They can be let out at the door.
Mm.
And so there are many things a church can do uh, that will make it much easier for people with dementia to continue to participate in the uh, uh, fellowship and communion of a church service.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that we need to deal with. The people who have dementia will feel that uh, they're in the way unless they're welcomed in terms of the care that is provided for them.
Sure. Yeah, that,
So you need to train your congregation to respond to people with compassion and care,
yeah,
not to neglect them, but to be willing to relate to them at a level that they're capable of responding to.
yeah. Like, what about for the caregivers themselves? Are there some things that the church can support them with, and how can they support? Say you were talking about, the whole family can get involved. Now, say for instance, there's a whole family in the church, grown kids, like you have grown children, and there are grandchildren. You say make sure that everybody's informed and educated. How do we come alongside and support them?
Well, I think that if we look at the responsibility of the church to provide care, we provide care, for example, for babies. We have a nursery.
Hmm.
We provide care for toddlers, so we have a place where they can meet together. We could also provide for care for a person with dementia, which would free the normal caregiver, the spouse, to participate in the church service and to experience that
Hmm.
in a way that is most helpful to them, so that care could be provided for people with dementia, just like we provide care for people with wheelchairs. So we cut the end off of a pew so the
Hmm.
person can bring their wheelchair up and slide
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
pew.
Or move a
Well,
few chairs or whatever we need to do. Sure.
that's right. There are many, many different things that we could do to physically accommodate people who have limitations, whatever those limitations may be.
Right, right. And then, so say outside of a church service, we as a church, how do we, care in for individuals who are caregivers? I just think of how can we come alongside the caregivers themselves throughout the week, with better support and encouragement.
Well, I think part of that would depend upon the size of the church.
Mm,
Uh, with a smaller church, I think that it needs to be a community experience, so that the community of churches or the community in general can provide opportunities to provide time away for caregivers, as well as a time when people with dementia can be cared for by people who are trained to do that,
hmm.
so that those things can be done. Now, in a larger church, you may be able to do that, as a church, but that's part of the ministry of the church in
Hmm.
caring for each other.
Right,
And So it depends on the individual situation.
right.
Our church is not large, but there are facilities in the community where uh, people with dementia can go for half a day, and they will be cared for, and they will be given games to play, interacting with people
Hmm.
at a level that they can appreciate and enjoy and find very fulfilling. Uh, Whereas the caregiver may have other needs, and so we can provide that for them as well. I think we just need to plan to meet the needs that the people are experiencing.
Right. And I think that's a big piece there is we need to be more aware of what the needs are for
That's
different caregivers.
right.
Because each situation is different, and people are who are struggling with dementia are at different places on the timeline, so to speak. Um, the needs for the caregiver could be different, and if their caregiver doesn't have many that don't, they don't have many much in the way of family around. I think of ways like maybe we could, as a life group, you're in a life group. I lead life groups and am in a couple life groups. Um, I look at ways that we could adopt a caregiver and their partner struggling with dementia. We could take them under our wing and say sometimes, like, what do you need? How can we help you? Maybe they've just had a week that's just been really difficult, and somebody can go in and cook a meal or something,
Yes, yes,
clean the house for them,
that's right.
whatever it might be, do their laundry. I think there can be so many simple ways. We would do that sometimes for somebody else. Somebody just came out of the hospital, from some a significant surgery or something like that, and they can't get out of bed. They can't do much for themselves, and the other spouse has to work, or maybe it's a single person who can't. So I'm not, there are so many different ways I think we as a church, as the church family, can think in very simple general terms,
That's right.
ways that we can support those with dementia, but also those who are caring for those who have the disease.
Yes, well, one of the things, perspectives that I think is helpful is to recognize that the culture that we have created today brings many problems with it.
Hmm.
When I was much younger, I can remember where on a weekend we would get together at Grandma and Grandpa's farm, and there might be 30 or 40 of us there at the weekend, and all ages, and the children would have wonderful times with their cousins and
Hmm.
nephews and nieces and whatever. In our culture, we have been diffused in the mobility is so different today than what it used to be, so that we can get scattered thousands of miles apart.
Yeah.
And so I think the church has an opportunity to become for each other what the close knit family used to be
Hmm.
when we all lived within a few miles of each other.
Yeah.
Now we're scattered. And we have to recognize that that's a need that the church can respond to, because we can create the church family as so that it can meet the needs that the family unit used to meet years ago by virtue of being so close knit and so living in such close proximity.
Hmm.
Now we're scattered.
Yeah. I can attest to that. I have three boys. Two of them are on opposite ends of the country,
That's right.
and one in the U.S. So it's a bit of a chore, a bit of, and you got to be able to make the journey. So
Yeah.
all the more, like, for myself in my pastoral role in terms of caring for people in the discipleship process and life groups, spiritual care, pastoral care, all of that, to encourage as part of our living out as disciples of Christ, is how do we come alongside each other? Because so many of us now have immigrants in our church too that come from far, far, far away, and we
That's
may
right.
be the only family they have. And then so when someone gets ill,
Mhm.
whether it's dementia or something else,
Mhm.
they can feel so alone.
Yes,
And yeah.
yes. One of the things that we did just 2 or 3 months ago was to invite the caregivers of people who had dementia to come together as a group, a small group,
Mm,
where we could provide support for each other and understanding and share things that we found worked in our case, and maybe it would work in yours, and
yeah,
this
yeah,
kind of. So creating occasions when people who are wrestling with the same issues can come together. And that not only applies to dementia, but to many of the other issues we face in life.
yeah,
There will be other people in the church who are struggling with the same things that we're struggling with. And so we can come together and discuss how can we, so the group becomes a problem solving group, and we
mm,
work together, and that's supportive. And the spiritual dimensions of that are extremely important as well, because we can have time to pray together, and we're praying intelligently because we wrestle with the same issues,
yeah.
and that's
Good.
important.
That's really good. That's really
Yeah.
good. Well, I sure have appreciated our time together. I think we've been able to, it's been enlightening to me, not only to read through the book, but just to have this conversation with you, because I think, as you said towards the beginning, that when something like this happens, in particular, there are certain diseases like dementia where people kind of like, oh boy, now what? Now what? And everybody around them goes, oh boy, that's really too bad. And there's this sense of lostness. Where do I go? What do I do? And if we can come alongside people and give them just, which your book does, just that enough to say, here's some things to remember. Here's some good things. Here's some important steps to take as you move through this, and where God plays a role in the supporting, as people take this journey. And we should be doing it together. It's not just, say, if a child and their parent, or a spouse and they're trying to care for the person. It's all of us, and which should be with anything. But with the complexity of something like dementia,
Mhm.
it seems to me it carries with it a little bit of stigma too,
That's right. That's
right?
right. And that has to be avoided. Let me just share personally that this, in fact, has been a bit of a journey for me.
Mm-hmm.
Having been involved in the academic world for many years, some of the earlier books I wrote were quite academic. And I think I've evolved to the point where I think that sometimes uh, writing small books like this on dementia, or another one that I did on leadership was about the same size. Uh, People need something that is in simplistic language that we all use and we understand.
Mm.
We do need the academic stuff.
Sure.
I find myself moving much more away from that to
Mm-hmm.
something that is maybe more, I hope, more helpful and practical
Yeah.
than. So I think that's been an evolution for me, as well as,
Oh, that's
and it
great.
probably is evident in the writing I've done over the years.
And that's so helpful. See, and how God changes us and moves in us. I
Yeah,
think Eugene Peterson kind of moved that direction a little more too.
absolutely. That's
And
right.
toward the end, some of his books were like, wow, that's just heartwarming.
That's right.
So encouraging. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing your wisdom and sharing what God's given to you, using your gifts, and being on Hope for the Agora, for this podcast today, because I think a lot of people are going to want to hear what you have to share, and uh, get the book. And
Mhm.
so we just encourage people. I was just recently at the Agora Gala, and Alan Gallant had given me a couple of your other books, but I did not have this one yet. And so it was on the table, so I bought it.
I see. Well, I really appreciate what Alan has done in recent years in developing this understanding and making mental health issues uh, more accessible and
Hmm.
understandable. And I think that Agora has done a good job in doing that. I appreciate them very much.
Terrific. Yeah, that's
Thank
why
you.
I'm excited. I've been part of them for quite a while, and was working with some pastors for a while who really needed some support in saying it's okay to struggle with your mental
That's
wellness,
right.
right?
Mhm.
And I've gone through the journey of some pretty intensive struggles myself. So coming out through more on the other side, or more balanced and understanding it, I just get blessed to be able to be part of what they're doing. And
Mhm.
yeah, Alan and Bonnie are really good friends of mine.
That's
So
great.
before we end, I just wanted to give you an opportunity. Maybe there's something you just kind of want to leave with us. That's a good, maybe it's a bit of a gem, or just something you want us to hear and to know. Just that one little thing.
Well, my sense is that one of the most important things for us to develop in our churches is the responsibility of community and the caring for each other. Sometimes we expect the pastor to do all the care.
Mm,
In the New Testament, it isn't the pastor who provides the care, it's the pastors who equip people to do the care of each other.
right.
And I would emphasize that as the most crucial part of our Christian experience.
Wow. That's a good word. Good word right there. And so, friends, if you are looking for some more of Glenn C. Taylor's books, you can find his Navigating Life series and others through GlennCTaylor.ca. Is that correct? That's
Yes,
still happening.
that's
That's
right.
great. And I'm going to ask any of you if you have any questions or comments about this episode or anything we're doing with Hope for the Agora. You can reach me, Allen Kleine Deters, at hopefortheagora@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out Agora Network Ministries at agoranetworkministries.com. We're so glad you could join us. Don't forget to follow us on the socials and on our YouTube. We hope to see you again in the not too distant future. Take care, folks.